Welcome to Vermont Artists and Authors, where we interview great storytellers and artists from the amazing Green Mountain State. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com. We're excited to have with us the internationally acclaimed and highly talented Vermont artist and illustrator, Michael Cribari. Michael.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So, for those that don't know, we had to do a couple takes on saying your last name, but we finally nailed it. So, Michael, we met each other when I ran into you at the Vermont Sci-Fi, Fantasy, and Horror Expo.
Yeah. You had the Vermont Comic Creators Group table there, which is I actually just recently been talking to a Vermont writer from that group.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we started working on a comic.
Oh, Dish. Who is it? Who are you working with now?
Zachary Niles.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he just joined up recently as well. So
yeah,
we kind of linked together and got something started.
Cool. No, because a lot of the things were, looking at your artwork, and I'm going to say, so definitely go to mcribariart.com. That's where a lot of Michael's work can be found. And one of the things that you kind of focus on a lot too in your artwork is kind of like monsters, like mythological monsters and stuff like that. That seems to be what you gravitate towards too right at the moment.
Yeah, definitely interested in creature design and character design as well. Those are kind of two of my sort of passions.
And so, do you remember the first creature that you ever drew?
That's hard to say. It was probably a dragon.
Okay.
Because I like drawing dragons. I think most kids that like fantasy like drawing dragons.
And what kind of like drew you towards surreal fantasy art specifically then?
I've just always been a big fan of comics and video games, and I played Dungeons and Dragons. So some of this stuff is, some of my art is sort of inspired by games I play and things like that. I've always just been like really enamored by comic illustrators, and aspired to make some similar illustrations.
Was there any particular artists or illustrator that you kind of gravitated towards?
I've always been a big fan of Humberto Ramos. He did a bunch of Spider-Man, and he's done Wolverine. He's done a bunch of different stuff, but he's got a very, like, I wouldn't say my art necessarily looks like his. I'm just a big fan of his. He's got a very stylized art style where he really like warps proportions, and he has a lot of like really intense dark black line art and stuff like that.
And so, okay. Let's talk a little bit too then Michael, about process and technique. Can you kind of walk us through a piece that you've designed from like idea to final print? How does that process work?
Yeah. So one of the main projects I'm working on right now is I'm making a tarot set. So I've now made 4 completed designs. I'm nearly done with the 5th. But just to use one of those for an example, usually the first thing I start doing is just pulling together a lot of reference, looking at what other people have done for tarot designs. A lot of it, what I'm doing for that is based off of the Rider-Waite deck, which is sort of like a classic tarot deck. But I pull together a bunch of different inspirations of what other people are doing, and from there I start sketching. I'm almost entirely a digital artist at this point, so I'll be sketching digitally, and then sort of refining that sketch layer by layer, until I'm happy enough that I go to an ink layer where I kind of drop in those dark lines. And then from there, I do colors, usually starting with a base color and then darks, lights, maybe sometimes multiple. Um, like I'll do multiple layers of darks and lights, and then possibly some sort of special effects stuff, like some glow lighting and things like that. And usually that's pretty much complete. Um, I make it sound somewhat easy that way, but it does take a lot. Of the sketching probably takes the longest sometimes, just getting everything really refined before I go in and start doing inks and colors.
So talk to us a little bit about the basket. What's that?
Oh, so that's the comic that I'm working on with Zachary Niles that he wrote. That I've been working hard on designing characters and drawing the first issue for. So it's like a superhero comic. It's about a group of superheroes in Saratoga Springs, New York.
And so, give us a little bit of information on the basket.
So let's see. There's 8 members, and the first issue is gonna start off by introducing you to Brick Squad, who is a hero that he can absorb matter and basically take on the properties of that matter. So like he can absorb brick and take on the properties of having like a brick arm, and that's just one of the 8 heroes that you'll get introduced to in the first issue.
Okay, that's pretty cool, huh? And how does designing a monster differ from, say, designing like a human character then?
In some ways, I almost consider it a little bit more difficult because you don't have as much of like a base frame to start on. You have to sort of usually combine different creatures that exist in real life, possibly some other fantasy drawings and things you see like that. But I think with designing a creature, I mean, there's a lot more variability you have because you can sort of add anything you want. If it's a fantasy or like a sci-fi creature, you can throw on tentacles or whatever you want. Whereas a human being usually is more or less, bipedal, 2 arms, 2 legs. But I think with any sort of either character or creature design, you really want to try to start with a really solid silhouette of the character, so it really stands out. So in that way, they're definitely the same.
Now, let's talk about some of the challenges that you faced and some of the wins that you've had recently. What would you say has been your biggest creative risk?
Creative risk. Well, I have been just doing more sort of art fairs and things, vending at events lately. So just, putting yourself out there in front of people to look at is definitely a risk just in itself. Plus, buying prints and merchandise to go into that is a risk in itself. It's a monetary risk. So, I'd say some of those are some of the bigger risks I've taken lately.
And what would you say then is, have you ever completely, I love asking artists this question. Have you ever completely scrapped a piece that you're working on halfway through?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
why was that? Yeah. What was the reason why?
Um, just usually, just you find yourself, or I find myself more frustrated than excited. It's just and every piece has its frustrations, but when you get to the point where you just think, in order to make this the way I want it to look, I'm gonna have to just start from zero.
Hmm.
I guess that's the time to start over, and that's okay. It happens sometimes. Um, And that's one of the things I like about working digitally is you don't actually have to do that as often. I don't think because you can just move things around, select it, make it bigger, make it smaller, do whatever you need to do. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely times where um, I've thrown away a project midway. Sort of my first comic project. It is on my website, and then I also have a Webtoon account. But my first comic project is a web comic called Soul Searching, and
Hmm.
I only ever released 2 issues. And I got to a point in the third issue. It was supposed to be a little bit more action packed, and actually got to a point where I felt like I didn't have the tools I needed to sort of handle that, like an action scene in a comic. So I ended up going and taking a class on comics, and I went to the Comics Experience website and took a class there on sequential art, and that was actually a really great experience. But um, I guess what I'm sort of getting to is by the time I got to the point where I thought I was equipped with the skills I needed to go back and make those action scenes, I just sort of had lost momentum on that project and was working on other ones. Um, so that one's one that sort of got dropped midway through.
What's a piece of your art that you're then most proud of?
I'm very proud of the tarot set that I'm working on. All 4 of the pieces I have done for that, I think, are really awesome. I just finished the Emperor, which I'm particularly proud of.
Hmm.
Um, so I definitely am excited to continue that project.
And so, being in Vermont, how does living in Vermont kind of how would you say living in Vermont affects your creative process?
Um, well, I'm definitely a bit of a homebody, which works, I think, well for artists. I spend a lot of time just um, sort of sitting at home drawing. Um, so I guess even being in South Burlington, there's not as much excitement of the city to distract you. And I work outside. I think I mentioned that already. So I get plenty of my outdoor sun time during the week, and then when I have time to just hole inside and draw, I guess I don't feel as bad about it. And then, especially during the winter months, which is long, I don't have to feel as bad about hiding inside and drawing.
And so you've been doing illustrations for quite a while now. So how how do you handle like creative burnout or pressure from the art world?
um, yeah, I mean that's definitely difficult. Um, I definitely get a lot of burnout from having a full time job and then trying to make art in addition to that. So it's good that I find fulfillment from art because otherwise I wouldn't find the time to do it. Uh, but I think going and doing those types of events, going and doing art fairs and things like that is great for the burnout because just meeting people and talking to them about your art is that's one of the most exciting parts, I think.
Hmm. And So what is some advice you would give to younger illustrators?
Um, you can learn anything you want on YouTube, first of all. And I mean, I think if you want to go to art school, that's awesome. And I think you should do that. But you also don't have to. There's so many amazing resources, and I did go to art school. I got a bachelor's degree in painting, but I honestly sometimes think I've learned more on the internet than I learned um, in painting classes. So that's definitely one thing that's really awesome about the modern day that I think young artists should take advantage of. And I guess when I say you can learn anything, you can get very specific. You know, if you need to learn a very specific tool and a very specific program for an art project, you can learn that. So I think that's definitely one big piece of advice. And then also just don't forget to have fun with it is like the most important part. Because there is always that pressure of like posting online and trying to get likes on social media and hoping to get sales. And at the end of the day, we're all making art because it's fun. So
Yeah.
if you're not having fun, then there's something wrong.
And so what advice would you give artists who are trying to price or value original art and commissions?
um, I would definitely suggest making prints and things like that of your art so that you can have cheaper priced items. You know, you want to be able to have a print for sale for maybe $10 or $20, and you know stickers for maybe $5 or less, so that there's a wide range. So then, if you do have original paintings, you can mark them up for what you think they're worth. Um, and hopefully still get some sales, and it gets people excited to make the larger purchases if they're already buying some of the cheaper stuff. And you know, you want your things out there, so you want people picking up your stickers and your prints.
Mm. Now, if is there, uh, so you mentioned that your tarot deck. Is there any other projects that you're working on right now, Michael?
Yeah, so the main two I'm working on right now are the tarot deck and the basket. Um, but I've also been working on writing an original comic or graphic novel for some time. I'm not sure when that will be ready, but I've been working on that for quite a while. I don't consider myself much of a writer, so it takes me longer than the art projects, but um, it's fun, and I want to be able to write my own stories.
Right. So what? Wait, when you're sitting down and doing your art, do you watch something in the background, or do you listen to some music? What's the thing that kind of like keeps you distracted as you're working on art?
It depends on where I am in the process, actually.
Mm.
So if I'm like blocking out a comic or doing the sketches and trying to really get everything exactly where I want it, and you know, working on things like perspective, you know, really basically things that I have to use my mind a lot for. I would usually put on music. Often it's like lo-fi or
Hmm.
like movie and video game scores, um, something kind of mellow. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's like metal, but you know, it just depends on my mood. So it'll usually be music, and then if once I get through the sketching phase and it's just more of like execution, doing line work and colors, then I'll often put something on to watch in the background, or possibly like an audiobook, because my mind can wander a little bit more.
Now, where is if people want to learn more about you and your art, is the best place to go to is going to be mcribariart.com, or is there another place they could visit?
Yeah, definitely my website, mcribariart.com. And then my most active social media is TikTok, but I'm also on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. If you search mcribari.art on any of those platforms, you should be able to find me.
Okay.
TikTok, I post a lot of my like process type stuff, so like sketching, and that's just kind of the most active social media for me lately.
Okay.
But I also post on Facebook usually if there's like an event coming up.
Right. Excellent. Yeah, and you definitely got those that go to mcribari.art. Yeah, you got a nice shop too. You got some of your and I saw some of these prints when we ran into each other at the Vermont Sci-Fi Fantasy and Horror Expo. I see.
Yeah, definitely. And I should have some new prints coming up soon. I did get some. I am working on getting some prints for the Emperor, the new tarot card I finished.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely check it out because right there you do it. Even like in your portfolio, you got your comics that you're talking about too, and also some of the creatures that you worked on and some of your tarot deck photos. Yeah, the Emperor, that looks gorgeous. You did a really good job with that one.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. Perfect. Listen, then so Michael, come back on when the basket's finished. That'd be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.